This is episode 35 of The Great Game. We got to speak with Pedro and Yaguaretè from Megagames Argentina in this episode, another group down in South America who have been chugging along for years now, bringing a lot of Watch the Skies and other games to the community down there. They are very enthusiastic and ambitious. They've been designing some of their own games, including a space opera, which we talk a little bit about, that sort of brings the expanse, for those of you who are familiar, with the uneasy kind of history of South America into the mega game world, which was just a fascinating pitch to sort of talk through. This episode, we did have a few technical issues on everyone's behalf. I'm not sure why, but apologies. There were a few little sections that we needed to drop just because the quality had been lost. But hopefully you still enjoy. And thank you very much to the team from Megagames Argentina for joining us.
Alright, I'm here with Pedro and Yaguaretè from Megagames Argentina. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thanks for the invite.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So why don't we just begin with a brief bit about yourselves and your mega game history. Maybe just starting with you, Pedro, how you got started in things and what attracted you to mega games.
Well, I saw a Facebook ad from the group Megagames Argentina. They were advertising their first Watch the Skies run that we call Vigilen los Cielos. It's the translation. And I thought it was a very original proposal, like a game for 60 people. What the hell is this? And unfortunately, they offered when you chose the role, you could choose control, and I chose control because I was interested in how you run a 60-person game. And unfortunately, I've been forever control since then.
Oh no! You got trapped.
Pretty much. I played once or twice.
Okay, good.
Mostly control.
Well, that's still better than many. A lot of people would fully get locked in there, so that's good. I'm glad you've got to play.
Yeah.
Very different experience.
Yeah, the same experience like in D&D. I'm the forever DM.
Yes. Yep.
And how about you, Yaguaretè?
Well, that edition was run in a convention. I was going to go there, and then I find the same advertising that Pedro found. But I joined the game as a player with suspicion because I didn't think that it was going to be as well as the advertising says it could. But as the game progresses, I was amazed at how people were coordinating that many decisions from different spaces and making one sole narrative for the next turn. So I joined the group immediately because as a thank you. Primarily.
And how do either of you have any background in this kind of thing, like running these big kind of events or doing game design, or was it kind of brand new for you?
Well, in my case, I've always been interested in game design, board game design. I mean, I've been running D&D since I was 11.
Oh wow!
Well, not D&D. I started with the D6 Star Wars games. You remember that? Westland?
Oh yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I played those.
Well, and we played a lot of 90s RPGs, and I still play them. That's like the glue that holds my friends group together. And besides that, professionally, I wasn't interested professionally to do it. I'm a graphic designer. I always been interested in game design and design in general, but not mega games. When I joined the group, I was, as Shower is mentioned, that I was amazed at how you can coordinate a cohesive narrative, collective narrative. That was what impressed me. What interests me, how you can shape those dynamics and mechanics to hold that that ship together.
Yeah.
I receive as a gift, I guess, for the Children's Day or something like that, in 1995, I guess. Toon, the RPG game.
Oh wow!
From Steve
I've
Jackson.
heard of that, but I've never played it.
I couldn't play it because no one taught me how to play it or run it or anything. I just watched a lot of pictures of cartoons and very interesting stories. And I knew that it was played with dice, but it wasn't enough. So I didn't have that much experience. But in the 2013, 14, I got in touch with people who run RPG games. So that's where I got into the hobby, and I always had that inclination to write and tell stories. So I would run my own games and try to design my own games, and then it came Vigila en los Cielos, Watch the Skies.
Nice.
And so when did that first run of Watch the Skies happen? How long after the sort of premiere of Watch the Skies in 2014 did you guys get your hands on it?
I joined in 2017 when they ran the first public game, where they signed people beforehand, and a proper mega game event. It was in a convention, so it was quite chaotic because there was people coming and going, and the place was not helping. But the second edition went super well. We had a secluded location within a convention as well, but we had a space just for us, and it was quite a good game.
Yeah, awesome.
If I may say so.
Yeah, I understand that Aleku purchased the game back in 2015, and then he and his friends were all 2016 translating it and making some playtest. And then in 2017 was the first edition. When I played it, I hadn't watched the Shut Up and Sit Down video yet. I don't know, Pedro.
No, me neither.
Okay, good.
I saw it after the fact.
Yeah,
just to make sense of what had happened.
Yeah, we've been talking to more and more people in the last year or so who haven't actually seen the video, which I think is kind of exciting because it's kind of like there's like a whole different wave of people who got into this. Also, when we were talking to Javier from Uruguay, he was saying that the video wasn't as useful a tool in South America because not a lot of people were interested because it was all English and they wanted to see native tongue game. So yeah, that's interesting. So 2017 was the public run. Yeah. Okay.
We haven't had much experience running games at conventions in Australia. Maybe just because I don't know. Maybe the the situation here is a bit different. I know in America and other places that conventions seem to be the go-to. How did you find the experience of getting it all together to run at a convention? How did that go for you guys? Was it tough? Was it good because a lot of people are there already?
Well, the first edition was greatly chaotic. That's what that's the word I would use to describe it.
Yeah.
Because it was the first time we were running this, most of us, and yeah, I mean there was too many people coming and going. There wasn't a space dedicated to the game, mega game, so people were coming, looking at the booths. It was impossible to know where the teams were located. But the second one, we took all those experiences and ran a much smoother game. We had a place where no one that wasn't in the game was allowed to enter, so that's what you
Mm.
need.
Yep.
We haven't run
Mhm.
games in conventions since, other
Mm.
than to show to promote it, but not to run it.
Well, I know that you mentioned that you weren't necessarily like the lead on that first run, but do you know what the logic was deciding to run it in a convention for the very first time? Was it just sort of coincidence, or was it a deliberate choice?
I think it was a coincidence because they had a place guaranteed that would guarantee exposure to the different nerd networks because it was a board game and many adjacent hobbies convention. So I think that's where the decision came from. Not really not specifically to run the game, but to have it present, to offer the experience within the bounds of the convention.
Yep.
After that, we've been running it in dedicated places, not in conventions.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense. And what was your experience running the game, given that it was designed in another language? Did you find that a big barrier to getting it to the table and getting it running? Or
Well, I interacted mainly with the translated version, but I don't think in Watch the Skies specifically, you don't have a high barrier because the concepts it delves into are pretty. I mean, you can draw from watching many movies the mindset that you have to put to play the game. I don't think it was a hindrance.
right.
You designed the redesign the images or the science cards and
No,
all of that, right?
not the science cards. I did the. I mean, I made the tech tree more visually compelling. I mean, not compelling, understandable. I made a lot of little
Okay.
helps, game helps. I'm a graphic designer. That's what I do.
Right.
I try to make it to make it make sense. Because if you read the manual, it's very dry. But if you follow if you make a tech tree and know how it's structured, you get the sense of where the narrative is meant to go. Never does, but it's meant to go in a certain direction.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, yeah, in my case, it's the same. I interacted mostly with the translated handbook, so I didn't have the experience of reading Watch the Skies. But well, I interacted with some handbooks from other games in the original
cool.
language.
So after running Watch the Skies, was that when you got into your own mega game, Independencia?
Yeah, I mean, after
Exactly.
running Watch the Skies, I had like a ton of ideas of different games I wanted to run, but well, it takes time to design a game.
Well, I I I had this idea previously before I played the game. I was reading the Game of Thrones, right?
Mm.
I thought of it as a novel narrative of political change. So, in my mind, there was this idea: what if I write in the novel form the history of the Revolución de Mayo?
Mm.
The Revolución de Mayo, or May Revolution, is like the first local government we had in Argentina. And I thought, well, what if I can write the history as if personal decisions of important actors of the history? And I was thinking of that idea, and I was thinking that it was like too much work to do it. And then I came with I played in Watch the Skies, and I found an structure that allowed me to make players play a game set in whatever time I wanted, with whatever agendas or goals I wanted, and show them how the outcome of the revolution depended entirely of their decisions.
Mm.
So what I found in Watch the Skies was the structure to allow me to show the players how the history wasn't determined, wasn't close, but it progressed depending on what players and actors' decisions are. Immediately, I started to make Independencia, el megajuego, with many similarities to Watch the Skies, but with the I think that that first version, had two different points that made it worth of playing. That were a greater focus on the Congress that could be represented in Watch the Sky by the UN. When I played, I felt like it wasn't that important, the UN. So here in my game, well, the Congress is going to be the main decision. And then when I use a mechanic for the map and the battles of solving simultaneously, that I took like from Diplomacy, 1914, the board game. So I added that two things that I really loved it. Well, that was the first version of Independencia. I had joined the Megagame group, Argentina, as a thank you, as I said before, but also to help them keep running the games, because I thought that it was too much work to do it, and if one couldn't offer help, well, it's very probably that that's going to stop from running. And the third reason was to steal mechanics and steal how the control make the game run effectively in behind the curtain.
Yep.
In the middle or last month of 1918, I could run the game, and it was like pretty
Great.
successful.
Tell us a bit. So you said before the show as well that it started as mostly watch the skies with a few tweaks. How did you change things for your council area, the Congress, to make sure that it would be impactful in the rest of the game?
Okay, well, the thing is here we have in our history we have an independence, and then we have like 50 years until we all agree on a constitution. So there was a party that won that was a more liberal party, more conservative party, more Buenos Aires party, more rest of the country party, more I don't know. My idea was that players playing it could feel and learn by feeling it. And what were the discussions that there were in that time? And for the what I did was instead of countries, we had different provinces with a different agenda of how the outcome of that constitution had to be. But first, all of them, or most of them, would have in their agenda the independence as a goal. So the idea was how do they agree on the same constitution, on the same laws, on the same nation? How do they constitute a nation, wanting different things each other and having a threat? Because we had the Virreinato del Peru, we had Spanish people from different points in the globe, and Portugal that also wanted some of the parts from Brazil. So that was the idea. It was also triggered by the fact that, well, back in the colonial days, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Argentina were had the same administrative capital. So we were like one nation, and the decision of becoming different nation was taken by humans.
Yeah.
I guess that's another way to combat xenophobia or something like that.
So how did you find the game went in practice when you put it in front of people?
The first game I had 2 playtests. Well, several playtests. The game is still evolving, and I guess that from in 1 year I could make the first version, and from them it's like 5 years, and I keep updating it.
Right.
I think that I had to stop to focus on other things. So I had to finish this. And the first 2 playtests were with few people. There were 6 or 7 people in each. And then the third playtest, it was like 20 people. When I say, well, that's the rules, start, and people start playing without me guiding them. It was like a moment of glory.
Yeah. That's always such a magical moment.
That one went excellent for my taste, and I wanted to play with more people. And I decided to add some new roles for make it to I think that the 4 playtest was like 60 people, and they were all cosplaying it, and it was excellent for the view. But in the end, the rules that I added had little things to do in the game, in the mechanics.
Mm.
So I had that my first rollback, and it was a little frustrating, but I had to learn from it. And it was instructive.
I feel like that's something we've seen in a few games from overseas where there's roles that have clearly been added on for, just to get extra bodies in the room, and the mechanics, sometimes are too light or they're not impactful. I think it's hard, especially when you're starting with a base. I assume the original, since you said it was kind of inspired by Watch the Skies, I'm assuming it was that 35, 38 player size. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going up to 60, that's a big jump to find things for everyone to do. Yeah. And Pedro, you're also working on a new game that hasn't yet been run. Is that correct?
Exactly. I finished the prototype, and I wanted to test it 2 weeks ago, but we couldn't get people to test it. So
Okay.
I'm planning to run it next month or during September.
Yep. And are these two the only games that have been designed out of the Argentine group so far?
I think Shower Mantente. No, it's
I adapted both and Taunt from Riley from Minnesota, and also I adapted Aegon's Conquest.
Cool.
So well, we can talk about that a little later. But so original Megagames, yes, we have Independencia and we have this Aceleración Constante. But there is another guy in Argentina that created a game about Antarctica and in a Lovecraftian setting.
Oh, cool. Like the Mountains of Madness kind of setting. Cool.
I haven't played. He ran it in Ushuaia, in Tierra del Fuego, the southern province.
Close to the source material.
Yeah, but we don't have any more data about it.
Okay, and so sorry, just before we jump onto, I think you were saying constant acceleration or acceleration.
Yeah,
Acceleration Constante. Yeah.
Constante. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's what you're working on now. But with before we were recording, you did mention to Jack that you'd been working on this online tool.
Yes, that's me.
And that's just for that game, or is it a bigger project?
That's just for that game. The idea behind it is we can playtest. It's both. We can playtest without having to print different things if something doesn't work, and also facilitating people from different provinces to play the game. That's one thing that we liked about our run in 2021, and that we had people from different provinces that we met in national conventions. And well, it's difficult for them to travel to Buenos Aires. So the idea is allowing them to play.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you find people? How did people like the theme, the historical theme? In Australia, I think generally we seem to find that people are perhaps more interested in the fantasy or sci-fi side of things. Yeah, how did people enjoy the real history element?
And that's a great question. I don't really know.
That's fair.
It's difficult. I remember being in a convention, a national convention in Córdoba, in the province of Córdoba. It was 19. I had a new version for playtest. And I had a schedule with my game in the Sunday, and I was on Saturday trying to get people to commit for the game. And when I was making my speech to convince them, a little boy said constantly in my head, "Are you trying to get them to play a historic game? Are you are you trying to make them enjoy a game set on a historical environment?"
Mm.
So I doubted too much. I think that it's difficult. It's difficult to get people to. I mean, if you make una encuesta, ¿cómo es Pedro?
Poll.
Ayúdame.
A poll.
If you make a poll and ask people what they want to play, what they wouldn't want to play Independencia. But if that's all they got to choose,
That's fair.
they will
Yeah,
have
that's
to.
true. That is true.
I think it's awesome that you the first mega game you've made is about your own history, because I think in Australia, I don't think we really run any mega games that are set in Australia or about Australia in any way,
No.
really. I mean, maybe slightly, we'll have Australia as a nation in Watch the Skies, but it's not something we've ever really focused on at all.
I found people being scared of not knowing about
Yeah.
history. So like stepping out themselves. But I insist every time that the game is like a trigger to get curious. The idea is that you don't need to know anything. You will have the brief with the agenda of your character, and then you play as you can or you want. And then when you're in your house, well, you maybe think, well, what people actually did in that context. And then you go to Wikipedia and so on.
And we had a bunch of teachers that were very interested in the game.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. It sounds like a very good subject matter for students.
We have, as Pedro said, we have a mate. A mate that's a teacher in La Pampa, in the province of La Pampa, and that want us to make a version more teenage friendly to play with them. And that's a project from last year. We couldn't make it yet, but that's the idea.
Independencia Kids.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, let's talk a bit about this new mega game then, Aceleración Constante. I was reading through the manual and it's absolutely gorgeous. So amazing work on the graphic design and everything, Pedro. How far along is it, and how was the process of putting it all together? Because the manual does look very, really close to completion.
Yeah, well, like right now it's a dead game because it hasn't been played, other than
yeah.
me trying the mechanics with 4, 5 people.
Hmm.
So I want to know if the dynamics work. I mean, I have all this set up to resolve or conduct the narrative in a certain way, but I don't know if it's too subtle or if they're going to react to the triggers that it proposes. So we'll see. I mean, I put a lot of heart into it, but I don't know if it's fun. That's
Well,
the
that's
great
always
mystery.
absolutely. Why don't we start? Sorry, if you could tell us what the game is about and give us a bit of an elevator pitch of what players do in the game.
Well, I got the inspiration for the game from watching the Expanse. You know, the Expanse.
Mm.
Well, the TV show and the series of novels. And something that really resonated with me was the aspect of there's a whole group of people, like a nation of people living in space that are disenfranchised and their resources are stripped from their lands, well, their asteroids, and for the profit of two countries, basically, in Earth and Mars. And that resonates with the South American history in particular. So I wanted to take tell that story with the glimmer of space battles, but the political focus stays grounded on that aspect that I think is resonates with South American audiences.
Mm.
One of the taglines I added to the game that I'm not using anymore is open veins of the solar system. I don't know if you're familiar with the open veins of Latin America book.
No, sorry.
I
Well, it's a very famous book here in Latin
mm,
America and exposes the different systems and mechanisms that foreign powers usually use to, well, provoke coups and strip lands of resources. So
Mm.
it's that narrative, but in the future and in space and with
Mm.
mysteries and, well, all that stuff. But I wanted the characters to represent that they have the opportunity to change their history, but, well, they have to agree within a very big team with very different views and agendas.
Mm.
right. How? Because when you mentioned that book, I think I have read it, or at least I've had it on my shelf at some point. But I was just wanted to ask how you have designed the game. Like it's quite a serious and political subject matter. Have you steered into that? Like, is it quite a dense, serious game, or have you still kept a lot of that sort of wacky or surreal mega game
Yeah,
narrative to it?
that's one of the things that I'm worried about. That's kind of
Mm.
dry. When you read the manual, and it's not very whimsical.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of whimsy in the mystery that don't want to spoil, but and it leads to it leads to a different narrative that I might I might design the next game based on the results of this one.
Hmm.
Mm.
Uh, like a cliffhanger at the end. And show
Okay.
the poster of the next game is going to be we're going to resolve this issue. Well, that's the
Nice.
idea. But yeah, I don't know. I think you have space pirates. Those are always fun. Yes.
Mhm.
I hope they'll find the fun in being space pirates
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
bullying the Earth and Mars navies. I
Yeah.
don't know. You have the
Well,
you have the hyper capitalists that run the corporations.
Yep.
They also have
mm.
like a wacky history,
Yeah.
And I have an element that I haven't finished the write up. That's the well, in the Expanse they have the Mormons that they're building the interstellar spaceship.
Mm.
Well, in this case, it's not the Mormons; it's a invented religion, but that's a very whimsical character as well. And the mechanics it operates under are very like
Yeah.
very stupid. he can he can choose elements and not elements. Like he can choose people to control, and they will do whatever he says.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but
Interesting.
I don't know if that the dynamic will be interested or fun to play, or it's not, or if it's not very opaque for the player.
Right.
Mm.
I have to run it and see it.
Mm.
Sorry, when are you planning to run it? What's the next step for the game?
The next step is going to be a 20-person or 25-person game. I'm trying to run it on August or September. I have to find I have to make organize a game session.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It sounds like you have kept a lot of whimsy in there. I think one of the things I've always been nervous about with game. I mean, you've layered this with sci-fi, so immediately it doesn't have to feel like a historic game. But I've always been nervous about historic games, in one sense because of the knowledge gap for both me and the players, but also I've always been concerned about people either taking it too seriously or maybe taking it too not seriously and potentially making light of things. But it sounds like you've got enough sort of fictional barrier in between the subject matter, like the inspiration and the actual game, that people probably couldn't take offense if if there's people playing really sort of evil or villainous teams. It sounds like it's all very light.
Yeah, I mean, it's expected to be villain. I mean,
Yeah.
even when we play Watch the Skies, you expect the USA to be a villain in the game. They
Yeah,
have most of the nukes.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I'm keen to hear about how it goes when you do get to play test it.
I will let you know.
Yeah.
I hope it
Mm.
goes well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope
Yeah,
the
me
people
too.
have fun. I mean,
Mm.
I have already produced. I've made the cards and everything is printed out, but I need people to know if it's fun.
Absolutely. Well, fingers crossed, because it does look amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
So in getting all these games together, sorry, you go.
No. I wanted to know if you had any trouble with the translation. I mean, I understand you use the automated
Yeah,
translation to
I
go through
just
the
use
manual.
basic Google Translate to get a basic understanding of it, but I'm sure I don't have any real understanding of how the game works. Sorry, but I was going to ask with getting all these games together and building up things. I know you two weren't the originator of the group, but what have you found your biggest struggle in kind of getting the community together and getting these games to actually run?
For me, it was Constance. I don't know about you, Shower.
We had the
Yeah.
pandemics,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a major fallback.
Yep.
In 1919, we ran an Independence game in April. Then we ran a Watch the Skies game in October, I guess. And we play Independence again in the convention.
Mm.
So we were like on our top. In 2020, it was going to be the first year that we wanted to make a schedule for the year. And well, you know what happened that year.
Mm.
And although we ran some games in the pandemics, I think it hasn't been the same since then.
Yeah, we're not.
People like lost the hype,
Right.
and
I mean,
even
we are
our
not starting
collaborators.
from score one, but it kind of feels like it sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, such a big gap.
Yeah, our major problem is the space. It's difficult to afford the cost of playing it in a dedicated space. So what we used to do was to like partner with the space, but it have been a little more difficult
Yeah, and
these last years.
since most of the games we have now in the catalog are for many people, I'm trying my objective this year and the next is to produce more games for less players.
Yeah,
So you can make more events every year and establish a calendar that we wanted to implement, but well, the pandemic hit and kind of put a stop on all our plans.
yeah.
Of course.
What's the what's the audience like for your group? Both before the pandemic and then now afterwards. Do you have a lot of returning players? Like, is there a core group who always show up, or is it always new people?
We have probably a 50-50. I
Okay.
mean, we could do a 60-person game with people that already played and played many times, many games.
Yeah.
But we always have new people. I mean, I think there's a great opportunity for mega games to become more popular here because it's a very original proposal, and there is an audience for them. But since we are the only ones running mega games, we have to call them, we have to build them, and they will come.
Yeah, that's right. Do you find it? Do you need to put a lot of effort into marketing and finding players, or do you just need to run the events and they show up?
Usually, I mean, there's one person on our team that specializes in the organization of the events, and he's always nervous until the day that we are going to have less players than we need. But so far we've always run games at a full book.
Yep.
Maybe 2 or 3 people missing, but not much.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
good. Yeah, that's really good.
So if you ask him, he will tell you that it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But he always is very passionate about getting the right amount of people and being certain that the game will run smoothly.
Yeah.
So it's great to have him.
And do you have much contact with other mega game groups? Yeah, like we mentioned, we talked a bit with Javier about, and yeah, he mentioned that he chatted with you guys. But yeah, do you have many chats with other groups around the place?
I remember asking in Facebook, in Megagame Coalition or Assembly, I don't remember, if someone had material for the 100 or 300 version of Watch the Skies. And Sean Myton, or Mitson, I don't really know how to pronounce
Oh,
it.
yep, John Myton.
And Sean's, he disencouraged me to run it. It was very funny. In the end, he said, "Yeah, I am disencouraging you because it's very hard, and you should start with fewer players." Well, he didn't know that we had some
Right.
history. But from there, I got in touch with some people. I wanted to play a game. Well, I don't know if I talk about Diplomacy 1914 before, and I wanted a game. Oh no, I remember now. In one of the first play tests of Independencia, one of the attendees were a teacher of history, the subject history, and she then said to me that it could be good to have a mega game for teenagers for the World War I. And she was like making some mechanic for them. I guess that didn't end in nothing, but well, I was curious and look for a game in the World War I. And then in the pandemics, I also got in touch with Kurt LaRue from Chicago, I guess, that he had run Den of Wolves online. I won some advices on running the games online. He gave me some good advices, and then he invited me and Aleku to run Den of Wolves. The next edition he made online. I don't know if you played or you know about it. There was people from different continents. It was an interesting experience. And then I also facilitate for Dan and his online aftermaths.
Oh yeah, Aftermath.
It was like a great experience as well. I was too nervous because I had to facilitate in another language, and it was quite the issue. But well, I hope and I guess that my players had a good time. And I guess that's it. Oh, and I participated in the Mega Jam 21.
Oh, right.
There was an online Mega. I guess that's where this Fairy Hospital, Fairy's Gay, something like that, game came out. I was in a team, and we had the idea of making a Godzilla game, but well, we couldn't end it.
Fair enough.
If anyone, I guess this is the time to sell ourselves. If there is any group, any designer that want their game translated into Spanish, we are open to receive any material that they want.
Open for commissions.
I'm working on that. Open for commissions.
That was something I was talking when we were talking to Javier. I'd thought in my head the South American groups were probably due to have Den of Wolves, but then I realized through those conversations that it's such a big task to translate the existing games that it makes sense that you just rather steer into just designing your own from scratch, because it's almost there's a lot of work that needs to go into it, even when the games are already created, to learn them, to produce them, but then also to translate the entire thing. So yeah, I think you might get some people taking you up on that offer if they've got games out there and they want to get it into a new audience, new market. Translation would be valuable. So it sounds like you've been pretty active in the international community, and now both of you have you've been involved in starting up this group and getting events together, and also in the design space. What advice would you give people who are either designing a mega game or they're trying to start a new mega game group? What's the key thing that they need to know?
Tough question.
Yeah, it's tough. Only one tip.
One tip on the wall.
Pedro?
Once you get the ball rolling, I think the hardest thing to get is a core group of control people that are committed to organizing such massive events. that's why I want to make more games that are smaller in size and are easier to run. I think Watch the Skies is a super fun, great game, but for it to be fun, I think it needs a lot of people for the dynamics to work. Maybe start with a smaller game.
Hmm. I think that's good
And
advice. I think that, and it's also the direction. In in Sydney, we've run games over the 10 years we've been going that have been as big as, just over 100. And I think now we are actually steering backwards, even though we have the audience. I feel like there's a sweet spot there with the maybe 30 to 40 people. It sort of creates the right dynamic.
If you, my advice could be, if you have no problem with getting the space to run it, and you're designing the game and you're not sure, just run it, and that's the way you find out how fun it is. Because, as Pedro said, maybe the game is completely balanced and you are very proud of your maths, but the game isn't fun.
Yeah, that's true.
It happened to me with the board game design about the Guerra de Malvinas, the Falkland War, that I struggled too much to make it balanced. And then when we played, no one was smiling at any time of the game.
Yeah, it's quite difficult coming from board games and board game design, because there's obviously things that are similar for mega games, but there is this whole extra chunk of player engagement and how they interact and what they're motivated by, that I think is sometimes overlooked. I've definitely got to the same spot in the past where I've created a set of rules and then had to think about, well, how do I make this fun now? Because the rules work and there's resources and all that kind of stuff, but what are they going to do? Yeah.
Yeah. I think
good
it's easy to get
advice.
a bit too wrapped up in balance and all of that kind of thing when, that's not necessarily what makes a game.
Yep. No, I think that's right. It's all about the player roles and what actions and decisions they need to make and how they interact with each other more than the mechanics.
Yeah, and pushing players to interact in interesting, different ways. That's
Right. Well, we kind of know what's next for the pair of you. You've got a new game on the horizon. You've got the online version of Independencia. What you mentioned though, the big games, the 100 players or the 300 players, is that going to be a realistic goal for the Argentine group in the near future?
My goal is to keep it small, but well, there's a tide of people that want to run 100 plus player game. I will be content with 30 person games a year and 3 to 4 new games each year. That's my goal. That's
Yeah, we can get all 30 players from each game, and then run 150 players for the Skies in the end of the year.
Nice.
Okay, all right. Big ambitions.
I'm dreaming right now.
It's funny. It was a similar when we talked to Javier. He's saying how we want to run a game each month, and we're just sitting here thinking. Well, I'm thinking, for the first 5 years, we only ran one game a year. So there's a lot of ambition down in South America that I can respect. 5 games a year sounds good.
Yes, 5 smaller games. I'm happy.
Good. Well, we should probably wrap up, but if anyone does want to reach out to you to hear more about the games or get involved in helping run the games, or as you said, if you would, if people want to get in touch to get your translation services, how can they find you?
Well, we have a webpage.
How can they find us?
The webpage is megajuegos.com.ar.
Yep.
megajuegos.com.ar.
.com.
Yep, we'll include a link to that.
.com.ar.
Yeah.
AR. And there you can find all our socials and stuff.
Yeah, we haven't been too active in Instagram.
No.
So the best way is that
Okay,
webpage.
perfect. We'll have a link to that. And do you have any games planned for the second half of this year? Any events in the works now that people can come and get tickets to, for example?
Well, I have to organize the Aceleración Constante maiden voyage,
Yep.
but
Okay.
it's going to be around the second half of August or the first half of September.
Okay. Perfect.
That's my calendar. I don't know if we want to run at least one Watch the Skies every year. We'll see if we get the ball rolling, because we've been very stagnant so far this year. Maybe this new game, and we can program a new Watch the Sky game before the end of the year. I hope
Yep.
we can do that.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Well,
I want to reignite the passion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have my online version of Independencia ready in code, but I'm having troubles to deploying it on the server to play test. I became well, I didn't say that. I became a software developer thanks to Megagames.
Wow. Okay.
That's a topic for another chat.
Wow. Okay. That's an endorsement we don't usually hear. If you're interested in developing software, start playing mega games.
Yeah, I'm helping other Megagamers.
All right, good. Well, that sounds like there could be three games on the horizon. Possibly, even when we publish this episode, there may be something. So keep an eye on the website. And yeah, thank you both. Appreciate chatting. We may need to chat again in the future to hear about how the new games go. But
Absolutely.
thanks for the time.
Thank you both
thanks
so
for
much for
inviting.
coming.
That's great.
I hope the audience didn't notice me nervous.
Not at all. Not at all.
Don't worry about that.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure, and I felt really comfortable.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome. Thank you so
Good.
much.